There is no sign indicating where Topela begins or ends. The dirt road that cuts through the forest doesn't appear on maps or in navigation apps. But it exists, just like the people who follow it. There are no gates, walls, or checkpoints. Topela is not a village built to protect its borders with iron or concrete. It protects itself with what defines it most, its roots. And those roots, once seen up close, leave every visitor with a question that won't go away. How is it possible for such simplicity and such strength to exist in the same place? Those who arrive without understanding see only a village with mud huts and thatched roofs. But those who look with the right eyes realize that Topela is a silent mechanism of an ancestral culture. Every step taken, there has weight. Every gesture, every silence, every laugh or reprimand carries generations of wisdom. Time passes differently. Decisions are not made by majority votes or network algorithms. They are made under old trees, in circles where the youngest learn to listen before speaking, where the elders teach without raising their voices. The first thing that surprises is the silence. Not the silence of absence, but the silence of listening. In Topela, the sound of the forest is respected. The wind is not background noise, it brings signs. The rustling branches are not ignored, they give warnings. And the song of certain birds, if heard in the distance, can change the entire day's plan. The people of Topela don't wear watches, but they know when it's time to plant, harvest, alert, or give thanks. They don't look to the sky to forecast the weather. They feel the earth, the air, and the body cycles as one movement. In Topela, laws are not written on paper. They live in stories told in low voices under the shade of baobabs. They live in the tone of the elder's gaze, in the way the matriarch ties the cloth around her waist, in the rhythm of the drums at night. There are laws that have never been spoken aloud, yet are followed precisely, not out of fear, but out of belonging. Here, the councils decide. And these councils are not made up of politicians or title holders, but of those who carry the village's values with the weight of time, pain, and courage. There's no police in Topela. No jails, but there is justice. When something happens, an offense, a mistake, a transgression, the village gathers. Eyes speak before words. The collective silence weighs more than any punishment. And restoration is never done through punishment, but through reconnection. Those who err, learn. Those who hurt, heal together. And those who harm the collective must relearn how to be part of it, or step away until they understand that no one is greater than the whole. Education doesn't happen in classrooms, but everyone is a teacher. Every gesture of daily life carries lessons. A child learns to respect fire not when someone yells, but when they see the respect with which adults handle it. They learn to apologize not out of obligation, but because they understand that a broken relationship creates a void everyone feels. Wisdom is not passed through tests, but through shared tasks, fireside stories, and silences that only make sense to those who have lived long enough to hear them. Topela's economy doesn't revolve around money. In fact, money has no value on its own. What matters is what can be shared. A basket of corn, a piece of cloth, a comforting word, a hand extended during drought. Wealth is measured in bonds. And though many outside the village see this as backwardness, it's this very bond that allows Topela to survive when modern systems collapse. Because where there is real connection, there is strength to cross any desert. The hardships are many. Drought doesn't ask permission. Food is sometimes scarce. Illness arrives with no hospital nearby. And abandonment by external authorities is constant. Topela doesn't appear in statistics. It doesn't receive visits from officials. What comes from the outside, when it comes, arrives with promises that are never kept. But the village goes on. And it goes on because it learned not to wait for salvation from afar. Topela's resistance is not in weapons, but in knowing that, even invisible to the world, they exist and refuse to disappear. There is sorrow, Yes, when a child dies because medicine didn't arrive. When someone leaves in search of a life that may not even exist. When the culture is mocked by those who think modernity is a synonym for worth. But sadness there is never solitary. Mourning is collective. Pain is shared. And hope, as fragile as it may seem, is never buried. It hides in small victories, in a good harvest, in a baby who survived, in a young person who chose to stay. Past still weighs heavily. Ancient colonizations left open wounds, erased languages, forbidden rituals, lost stories. But Topela resisted, preserved what it could, adapted what was necessary, and reinvented what would have been forgotten. That's why, when entering the village, everything seems older, but also more alive. Because there, time is not just what passed. It's what remains. Topela's smiles are not advertisement smiles. They are teeth that shine through cracks. Eyes that know how to cry and laugh in equal measure. Joy doesn't come from comfort, but from connection. From knowing you belong. That you are seen. That even without having much, you have one another. The rituals mark seasons, cycles, mourning, and rebirths. At night, the drums beat not as a show, but as prayer. Men and women dance barefoot on the earth, as if speaking to their ancestors. Each movement is memory. Each sound is remembrance. And there, between one beat and the next, the observer feels something hard to explain, as if the heart of the village beats in the same rhythm as the feet touching the ground. There is no perfection. In Topela, there are conflicts, disagreements, difficult choices. But there is something rare, a collective sense. And that makes each mistake an opportunity for healing. The elders are never in a hurry. They look at decisions with the wisdom of those who know that everything returns, that life is cyclical, and that what seems urgent today will be just a bend in the road tomorrow. To Pela, single quotes, youth live in tension. Many want to leave, to see the world, to test their own steps. And sometimes they return with different eyes, more critical, more aware, more broken. But when they return, and many do, they find in the village what the outside world promised but did not deliver: truth. Truth in relationships, in values, in the meaning of existence. In Topela, no one owns the land. The land owns everyone. It welcomes, but also demands respect. And that respect is learned through scarcity. When it doesn't rain, everyone feels it. When fruit ripens, everyone harvests. Food is prepared together. Water is shared. And the little becomes plenty when it is shared. Marriages are agreements between families, yes, but also alliances. Between stories. Love, when it is born, grows slowly. It doesn't explode. It blooms like one who respects time. And even in separation, there is care. Because everyone knows that to hurt someone in Topela is to hurt oneself. The network is dense. And no knot is loosened without shaking the others. Technology arrives little by little. With old cell phones, community radios, improvised solar panels. But it does not dominate. In Topela, technology is a tool, not an identity. Children play with stones, run among trees, swim in rivers. They learn that the world is not on the screen, it's in the skin, in the sound, in the smell of the wet earth after rain. Tourism barely exists, few get there. And those who do are warned: here, you don't observe, here you participate. Those not willing to learn are not welcome. And those willing to listen may discover that the true wealth of humanity is not in the shining cities, but in the forgotten places that still know who they are. That is why the story of Topela must be told. Because as long as there is someone willing to listen, this village continues to exist not only on the map, but within those who understand that there are entire lives outside the spotlight. And you, who made it here, can help keep this story alive. Like, share, subscribe. Because the more people know Topela, the less invisible it will be to the world. There was a boy in Topela who didn't know what a birthday was. He didn't know because no one there marked time with individual celebrations. He only knew that, once, his father drew a vertical line in the mud wall. "That's when you were born," he said. And later he made another mark. "That's when you walked on your own." The boy looked at those marks and recognized them as chapters in a book written only with gestures. That wall was his calendar. And for him, that was enough, because being remembered is more important than being celebrated. The women of Topela are the backbone. They are the ones who rise before the first light to prepare porridge, who carry firewood on their heads and children in their arms, who heal with roots, who pray without books, who bleed without making noise. Many have never set foot outside the village but know more about life than any modern book could teach. They make decisions between the lines. They influence with a look. And when one of them cries, all feel it. The suffering of a woman in Topela is never hers alone. It's a crack in the invisible structure that holds the community together. Once, one of the elders said that when she was a girl, there was a long drought. So long that the drums stopped beating, the dances ceased. The stories withered like leaves under the cruel sun. During that time, the children started drawing in the cracked earth with their fingers, as if they could rearrange the land. One of the boys drew rain. And the story goes that 3 days later, it came. Not because he had power, but because their drawing is also praying. In Topela, imagination has spiritual roots. To create is to ask. To ask is to believe. Weddings in Topela are not made with metal rings, but with bonds of meaning. Two families come together, share stories, recall their roots, and unite not through contracts, but through commitments that span generations. If there is love, it blooms with time. If there is pain, it is carried together. And if there is separation, it is respected as part of the journey. No one is forced to stay where there is no more life, but everyone is taught to try, not out of obligation, but out of care. Children play with animal bones, branches, stones, and shadows. They invent games with dust and compete with shouts that echo between trees. There are no electronic toys, no playgrounds with rubber flooring. But there is freedom, and there are risks. Sometimes someone gets hurt, sometimes a scorpion appears. But no one grows up unaware of their own body. In Topela, childhood is raw. And it's exactly because of that it's so alive. Every scar is a diploma that life hands out without ceremony. When someone falls ill, the village transforms. The women take turns with teas and damp cloths. The men hunt for medicine in the forest. The elders murmur ancestral prayers that don't need to be understood, only felt. There are no ambulances, no emergency rooms. But there is care. There is a current of affection that never leaves anyone alone, not even in their most fragile moments. In Topela, falling ill is a collective event. And healing, when possible, is a victory for the entire village. There are young people who become restless, who dream of the lights they've heard about, who want to know the world beyond the mountains. Some leave with improvised backpacks, promises to return, and eyes full of longing. Others get lost along the way, swallowed by cities that don't know who they are. And some, the few who return, come back different, quieter, harder, more grateful. Because they discover, out there, that not everyone offers water when you're thirsty. Once, an elderly woman told the story of a daughter who left. They said she would work as a maid in the capital. But months turned into years, and years turned into silence. The mother still keeps her daughter's mat stretched out on the dirt floor, as if she could return at any moment. No one talks about it often, but everyone knows. Absence also has a place in Topela. It is felt, but not suffocated. Because those who leave, even if they never return, still live in the details they left behind. That the dances are not just celebrations. They are prayers in motion. Feet touch the ground as if activating the memory of the earth. Hips move as if expelling old pains. Hands draw in the air the requests that were not spoken aloud. And when the music begins, no one remains indifferent. Even the sick tap their feet. Even the elderly nod their heads. Because in Topela, to dance is to affirm that one is alive, even when everything around tries to say otherwise. The village has no public lighting. When night falls, darkness is complete. The only light comes from embers or the moon. And in that darkness, stories gain another force. They are told around the fire, with wide eyes and attentive ears. These are stories of talking animals, of men who turned into trees, of spirits who protect or punish. And even if the outside world doesn't believe, no one there doubts. Because these stories shape behaviors, decisions, and fears. They are maps for those without GPS. When someone dies, there are no screams. There are songs. Women sing to guide the soul. Men sing to give thanks for the passage. Children observe in silence, learning that death, in Topela, is not the end. It is return. The body is wrapped in simple cloths, adorned with meaningful objects, and buried near the home. Because there, the dead are not forgotten. They are invisible neighbors. Their absence is not denial. It is transformed presence. The councils meet when there are conflicts. And a court is not needed, just a tree and attentive ears. Each side is heard with respect. There is no rush. Judgment takes longer than in the cities, but it is also fairer. The goal is not punishment. It is restoration. Justice in Topela does not need handcuffs. It needs presence, listening, agreements that honor everyone's dignity. And when it works, it's because everyone sees themselves as part of the same fabric. The land is fertile, but it does not forgive. Those who plant without watching the signs lose. Those who harvest too early waste. That's why there are rituals before every crop. Prayers, offerings, silences. An ancient respect between man and nature. Because in Topela, the earth is not exploited, it is courted. And like any real relationship, sometimes it refuses. Sometimes it remains silent. But when it gives abundantly. The water comes from a shared well. There are no pipes, no faucets. Women and children walk long distances with buckets. Balanced on their heads, some might complain. But there, the journey to the well is also a space for conversation, laughter, exchange. The water, when it arrives, tastes like achievement. Every drop is used with care. No one washes cars. No water is wasted in showers. Water is life. And those who live with scarcity learn not to treat it as comfort, but as blessing. The market is an open space with cloths laid out on the ground. Fruits, fabrics, handmade objects are sold. There are no shop windows, no cash registers, but there are honest exchanges. A basket of cassava might be worth a bracelet. A fish might be traded for a well-told story. And no one leaves empty-handed. Because in Topela, those who can't pay with goods pay with time, help, affection. The climate is harsh. Winds carry dust. The rains, when they come, can be blessing or threat, but the people have learned to adapt. The houses are built with ancestral wisdom. The slanted roofs are not by chance. The cracks in the walls have purpose. Heat is redirected, cold is contained. Nothing is random. Every architectural detail is a silent response to the environment. Modern diseases have started to appear. Diabetes, hypertension, respiratory problems. And no one really knows where they came from. Some blame the processed foods that began to circulate. Others blame the air, the river, the neighboring city. But everyone knows something has changed. And even so, they try to balance traditional medicine with the few available pharmaceuticals. Because in Topela, health is still more than medicine. It is relationship, spirit, balance. There is fear, yes. Fear of losing traditions. Fear that the young will forget. Fear that globalization will swallow the soul of the village. But there is also strength. The strength of those who have already survived other erasures. The strength of those who know that as long as there is someone to tell, as long as there is someone to listen, Topela will resist. One day, a man arrived in the village wearing Western clothes and a camera hanging around his neck. He spoke a foreign language and smiled more than he listened. The elders received him with kindness, but kept their gaze steady. He claimed to be there to document local life, but he seemed more interested in capturing images than understanding meaning. He took pictures of women carrying water, of barefoot children, of men working in the fields. When he left, he offered empty promises and left behind no true memory. For Topela, just another curious visitor. For him, perhaps just another digital file. But the village carried on. Because there, those who come without giving of themselves leave no roots. There was a boy who said he wanted to be a griot, the guardian of stories. Every night he sat beside the oldest man in the village, without speaking, just listening. He learned not only the plots, but the pauses, the silences, the glances between words. In Topela, becoming a storyteller is not a profession, it is a calling. And that boy, still young, already carried a handmade notebook on his back, where he drew everything he heard. When someone asked what he wanted to be when he grew up, he would answer, "I want to be memory." And in that place, everyone knew that was more valuable than any diploma. When the rains are delayed, the days become long. The heat sticks to the skin, eyes burn. Hope hides beneath the trees. The children, with bloated bellies and cracked feet, learn early how to deal with waiting. But no one stands still. The men keep planting. The women continue weaving mats. The elders watch the sky, trying to decipher the signs of time. And when the rain finally comes, there is no euphoria, there is reverence. No one runs to get wet. Everyone retreats and listens, as if the water were telling a story. As if it were a spirit that only appears when respected. Food is never abundant. And yet, it never runs out. There is a silent math between families. When one house has too much, it distributes. When another has too little, it receives. No one is charged, no one is judged. Action is simply taken. This invisible system of cooperation is more efficient than any public policy. And it is born from the deep understanding that the well-being of one is a reflection of the care of all. That's why, even in scarcity, Topela has never seen war. Because where hunger is shared, peace resists. A woman known as Kema by her neighbors became known for healing with her hands. They said that when she touched, the fever would drop. That when she whispered, the pain would recede. Some, more skeptical, said it was coincidence. Others believed it was a gift inherited from her ancestors. The fact is, when someone got sick, they called for her, and she came, without asking for anything. She brought a cloth, crushed leaves, a soft chant. She would stay by the sick person's side until the body responded or departed. In both cases, she wept with the same respect. For Kema, life and death were sisters. And to heal was simply an act of love between them. The villages improvised. School operated under the shade of a tree. A man who had studied for a few years outside returned to teach the basics. He used a broken blackboard, bits of chalk, and donated books. But his greatest tool was patience. He taught children to write their own names, to count beans, to read the tales of their own people. And in the breaks, he taught something even more important, the dignity of learning without shame. He said that learning to read the world was as vital as learning to read words. And so, learning was an act of resistance. Clothing in Topela does not follow fashion. It follows meaning. Each color has a purpose. Each pattern carries a story. The cloths worn around waists, on shoulders, on heads, are like open books about who someone is, where they came from, and what they carry. During a celebration, the village transforms into a sea of colors and meanings. And those who know the codes read the bodies like living pages. But outsiders often see only traditional attire, and miss the chance to understand that in Topela, even the fabric speaks. Baptisms are collective celebrations. When a new baby is born, the entire village is summoned. The child is presented to the sky, to the earth, and to the ancestors. A drop of water on the forehead, a handful of earth on the feet, a name whispered in the ear. There is no civil registry, but there is profound recognition. The child comes to belong, not just to the family, but to the shared history. And everyone becomes responsible for their existence. Childhood is not outsourced. Every adult is a guardian of the future. Sometimes, a foreigner chooses to stay. Rare, but it happens. One of them, years ago, chose to live there after falling in love with a woman from the village. He gave everything up. Learned the language, the gestures, the rituals. At first, he was met with suspicion. But over time, his effort to respect and not dominate earned him a legitimate place. Today, he walks barefoot, plants corn, tells stories. And he says that in Topela, he learned that belonging can't be bought. It must be earned with humility. The sound of the drums, when heard from afar, signals that something important is happening. It may be a party, it may be mourning, it may be a call. In any case, the sound has purpose. No one beats a drum for nothing. Every beat has weight, direction, intention. Children learn this early. First they listen, then they imitate. Later, they play with their hearts. Because in Topela, playing the drum is not music, it is language. And whoever does not understand the language of the drums does not understand the soul of the village. Foreign policy has little effect on the daily life of Topela, but the impacts, even silent ones, arrive. Subsidies that never come. Projects that don't respect the local culture. Laws that don't reach. And at the same time, threats disguised as progress. Mining, tourism exploitation, promises of pavement. The elders know that poorly guided progress can be more destructive than misery itself. That's why they resist. Not change itself, but the kind of change that disrespects. The village dogs have no owners, but they have a place. They sleep beside the children, warn against snakes, bark at strangers. They are part of the landscape, the rhythm, the security. And they are treated with respect. They don't receive imported dog food, but they get leftovers with care, affection with naturalness. In Topela, even the animals know who they belong to. And it's not to a person, it's to the community. During the full moon, a specific ritual is held, the circle of silence. No one speaks for an agreed period. Only gestures. Only presence. It's an ancient practice, created to remind everyone that speech is powerful, and silence teaches too. Some children giggle at first, some adults grow impatient. But little by little, silence shapes listening. And when speech returns, it comes clearer, more necessary. The village relearns how to listen. And that, in today's world, is rare. Once a year, the naming ceremony takes place. Those who reach a certain age earn the right to change their name if they wish. Some keep theirs. Others change to words that represent what they've lived, what they've overcome, what they've chosen to become. A boy became root. A woman chose storm. An elder became path. In Topela, a name is not just identification, it's a living narrative. And changing your name is not vanity. It is recognition of transformation. Letters arrive rarely. Brought by walkers or distant relatives. When they come, they are read in groups. Shared like a rare meal. Words from afar are celebrated like gifts. And those who write know this. That's why every sentence is chosen with care. Because in Topela, the written word still holds the weight of a promise. Night falls quickly. Darkness covers everything with a dense blanket, but no one is afraid. The stars are a compass. The fire is company. And the tiredness after a full day of effort is welcome. The houses settle in, voices lower. And even without electric light, Topela glows. Because there is a peace that only those who live in collective silence understand. A sense of being in the right place, even when everything is difficult. The older women bear tattoos on their faces. Marks made with thorn needles and natural pigment. Each line has meaning. Motherhood, wisdom, pain overcome, beauty accepted. They are maps of flesh, stories that time carved into skin. And those who look in haste see only scars. But those who look with the heart see an open book. The boundaries of Topela are symbolic. The village stretches as far as the forest allows, as far as respect reaches. There are no walls, but there are limits. And they are taught with gestures, with glances, with stories. A river marks one side, a hill the other. And when someone crosses without permission, they are not punished with violence. They are called to listen. Because in Topela, those who don't understand territory don't understand the value of coexistence. Faith, finally, is an invisible fabric that runs through everything. It has no temple, no single name, but it is in everything. In birth, in harvest, in pain, in dance, in healing. Every gesture is a prayer. Every glance is a request or a thank you. And that's why, even on the hardest days, Topela doesn't give up. Because faith there is not escape. It is ground. It is strength. It is answer. One time, when the river had dried up for weeks, the children were forbidden from swimming, and the fish vanished as if hiding from the collective sadness. The village then paused. Conversation slowed, laughter became rare, and the drums fell. Silent, but it was in that silence that something bloomed. Women gathered to sing softly inside their homes, ancient songs only sung in times of scarcity. The elders said these were songs to remind them that, even when everything is lacking, the voice remains. And there, with trembling voices and firm eyes, they kept alive the certainty that water returns. It always returns when there are those who resist by singing. One of the hardest moments in Topela's recent history was when a foreign company tried to install a mining base just a few kilometers from the village. They promised jobs, schools, access to the city. But the elders knew. With progress would come invisible losses, depleted land, poisoned rivers, diluted values. Long meetings were held under the oldest trees, with tense voices, divided youth, confused hopes. In the end, they decided together. They refused everything and accepted the cost of invisibility. Because there, being forgotten was safer than being exploited. Topela preserves a practice that amazes anyone who witnesses it. Every newborn, in their first days of life, is presented to the keeper of the word. An elder, chosen by the council, whose mission is to teach the child only one thing throughout life, the truth. This keeper follows the child's growth, not as a parent, but as a living conscience. They teach that lying does not only hurt others, but breaks a bond with one's own spirit. In times where lies circulate like easy currency, Topela still cultivates the value of the word as a sacred seed. A young woman in the village, known only as Zua, decided to sew dresses for other women, using leftover fabric from ceremonies. She started quietly, with a bone needle and the thread of patience. Her dresses were not for sale. They were meant to give women back the joy of seeing themselves as beautiful. Over time, her creations began appearing at parties, dances, and weddings. And more than beauty, they carried pride. Each stitch said, "I am from here, and that is enough." Zua did not leave. She didn't want shop windows, she wanted belonging. And her needle became an instrument of aesthetic resistance. Topela's nighttime songs follow no fixed repertoire. They are improvised. Often, they are born from silence. One begins with a verse, another responds. Each voice fits like a stone in a river. And when someone cries during the singing, they are not interrupted. They are embraced within the melody. What might seem like a simple song to outsiders is here a remedy, a truce, a collective embrace in a language that only exists while the night lasts. Time does not run in Topela, it happens. No one rushes to finish a conversation. No one leaves the table with food still on their plate. Visits have no scheduled time, but they have meaning. And when someone knocks at the door, no one asks, why? But how can I help? It's this other rhythm that confuses visitors. Some see it as delay, others as a miracle. But those who stay long enough understand, there to live is to be. And to be is, above all, to listen. When a child makes a mistake, they are not corrected with shouting. They are called to sit beside an elder. That person tells a story, a fable, a real event, a memory. And within that story lies the lesson. The child listens and understands, not because they were punished, but because they were invited to reflect. In Topela, to teach is to sow, not to strike. Firmness exists, but it is wrapped in dignity. And respect is built, not demanded by force. Topela also has its internal dramas, jealousy, disputes, secrets. But instead of sweeping everything under the rug, the village makes space for venting. Reconciliation meetings are held with food, music, and listening. There are no trained psychologists, but there is collective wisdom. Every time two people reconcile publicly, the village celebrates. Because peace between two is a seed of peace for all. And pride, however strong, always gives way to a sincere request for forgiveness. When an elder dies, their story is told by those who remain. For days, friends and family take turns remembering phrases, gestures, deeds, mistakes, and lessons. It is as if their existence is reassembled as a mosaic. And in the end, everyone knows that person has not disappeared. They've become part of the ground, the music, the wind. In Topela, no one truly dies as long as someone tells their story with truth and tenderness. The village's musical instruments are handmade, goatskin drums, bamboo flutes, rattles with dried seeds. Each instrument carries not just sound, but memory. A drum, before being played, is awakened with herbal smoke. The flute is only played after being bathed in the river. These are simple, yet profound rituals. Because to play music is to touch the past, and at the same time, to open the way to the future. Topela's community kitchen is one of the village's vital centers. Not just for the food, but for the gathering. It's where gossip is heard, marriages are arranged, harvests are celebrated. The stove is wood-fired, and every aroma has its time. There is no stopwatch, there is intuition. And when the food is ready, no one eats alone. Eating is a collective verb. It is sharing. And even the shyest of men knows that there, between one spoonful and the next, bonds are woven that not even time can undo. The biggest festivals in Topela happen during the full moon of the solstice. It's 3 days of singing, dancing, body painting, storytelling, and ancestral celebration. During these days, no one works, no one isolates themselves. Everyone participates. It is when children receive their first instruments, young people make declarations, elders bless the cycles, and everyone dances as if dancing were the only way to breathe. Because during these celebrations, the entire village remembers that being alive is a sacred act. There was a time when the village was hit by an epidemic of dry cough. For weeks everyone coughed. Traditional remedies weren't enough. Despair began to grow. But it was a woman, known only as Inea, who chose to seek help in a distant city. She walked for 3 days, convinced a doctor to accompany her, and returned. With unknown herbs and new guidance, they slowly healed. And when all passed, the village called her Bridge. Because without abandoning her roots, She had the courage to cross borders and return with life. Children learn the value of work early, but not as punishment. Helping is belonging. A 6-year-old girl already sweeps the yard. A 7-year-old boy learns to tend the fire. They are not burdened, they are included. And so, they grow up knowing they are not guests in life. They are responsible. And their childhood, though simple, is full of purpose. One of the young people in Topela dreamed of becoming a photographer. He had never seen a camera, but he drew scenes in the dirt with his fingers. One day, a visitor gave him an old phone with a broken camera. Even so, he used the blank screen to frame the world. Years later, when he got a working phone, he began capturing the village with an eye no outsider could have. His images were exhibited in another city, and he chose not to leave. He said his place was there, because Topela's beauty needed to be recorded by someone who loved it from within. The relationship with the forest is reverent. Every tree has a purpose, every leaf a use. No one cuts without reason. No one hunts out of vanity. When a tree needs to be felled, permission is asked. When an animal is taken, gratitude is given. This ecological spirituality isn't found in books. It's in the gestures. And it's what keeps Topela alive when so many villages around have already lost their connection to their own land. Dreams are taken seriously. When someone dreams of snakes, of red rivers, or of someone deceased, the council is summoned. Dreams are signs, warnings, messages, and even those who don't believe still show respect. Because in Topela, the invisible has its place. The world doesn't end at what the eyes can see. And this gives the village, even in its most rational moments, a deep openness to mystery. The language spoken in Topela is tonal, rich, and difficult to translate. Some words have no equivalent in Western languages. A word can mean longing, belonging, and pain, depending on its tone. That's why when someone in the village speaks, you need more than to hear, you need to feel. Translating Topela is nearly impossible. Only those who live there understand what certain phrases carry. And so language becomes more than code. It becomes shield, refuge, root. Topela's future is uncertain. External pressures increase. The youth are torn between leaving and staying. Technology advances. The forest suffers. Yet, despite all this, the village endures. And it endures not because of trends, fame, or global acceptance. It endures because it was built on values that time does not erode. And as long as there is someone who listens, who tells, who resists, Topela will live on. The feet that step on Topela don't just leave footprints on the beaten earth. They leave marks in the history of a people who learn to endure. Even when the world spun too fast to keep up, time there is not chronological. It is circular. What happened returns. What is lived transforms. And what is yet to come always carries the echo of those who came before. That's why, in Topela, the end of a story is never a full stop. It's a fold in time where everything continues. In a different way, with another name, but the same soul. As the last lights of the day fade, the village enters that state. Between what is visible and what is felt. Voices quiet down, bodies rest, but presence remains. Topela at night does not sleep, it whispers. In the creak of the straw, in the distant sound of a solitary drum, in the brief bark of a dog that recognizes the dark, there is a universe pulsing without needing an audience. It is there, in the silence between the end of one day and the beginning of the next, that wisdom settles. There's something in Topela that defies modern logic. A people who do not measure success by possessions, but by bonds. Who do not seek to conquer time, but walk alongside it. Who do not idolize youth, but listen to the elderly as if they are listening to their own origins. Who do not bow before the promise of wealth if it comes hand in hand with the loss of identity. In a time when speed has become a virtue, the slowness of Topela is an act of resistance. Everything there has layers. The tree that shelters meetings holds secrets in every branch. The stone that serves as a bench has heard arguments in comfort. The clay stove that smokes slowly carries spices and memories. Nothing there is neutral. Nothing is just a thing. Everything has a before, a during, and an after. And every object carries within it a fragment of humanity, as if the eyes that created it are still there, watching. The pain in Topela is real. There is no romanticizing scarcity, no poetry in the absence of basic services, but there is dignity. There is a strength that doesn't come from denying pain, but from how it is carried. No one walks alone. No one buries their dead without company. No one despairs without at least a hand extended. That is what keeps the village standing when everything around threatens to collapse. There is a phrase spoken among the elders: what is not remembered dies. That is why, in Topela, remembering is sacred, remembering who came before, what was lived, what was lost. Every child is taught to keep a story, not as someone who memorizes, but as someone who carries a flame. Because as long as there is memory, there will be a people. As long as there is a people, there will be a path. And as long as there is a path, hope will have somewhere to walk. The sky over Topela is the same one that covers the rest of the world, but there it feels closer. Maybe it's the absence of artificial lights. Maybe it's the way people look at it, not distractedly, but with purpose. Each star has a name, each constellation a story, each eclipse a warning. Looking at the sky, there's a gesture of connection. A silent reminder that the universe also watches, in silence, those who live with truth. The village is made of voices. Some loud, others barely whispers, but all are necessary. Even those who speak little have their moment to speak. Because in Topela, speaking is not an automatic right. It is a collective responsibility. Only those who have listened may speak. Only those who have been involved may give their opinion. And when someone goes silent, it is not absence. It is a pause. A pause that prepares the next act with more wisdom. Hope in Topela is not a spectacle. It does not wear ready-made phrases, nor announce itself with fanfare. It is a silent hope, one that lives between the lines, that reveals itself in the daily effort to continue. It lives in the woman who plants without knowing if rain will come. In the man who teaches even when no one says thank you. In the child who draws on the ground even without paper. Hope there is alive because it is invisible, and because of that, so strong. The days repeat, but they are never the same. Each sunrise brings challenges, joys, surprises, and losses. But what doesn't? Change is the way they face them, with the strength of those who know that the collective is stronger than any individual pain. What moves Topela is not a miracle, it is the daily choice to remain, even when giving up would be easier. Even when the outside world offers seductive shortcuts, they choose to stay. They choose to be. They choose to resist. Topela is a living question posed to the world. Do we still know what really matters? Are we still capable of living in community? Of listening without judging? Of sharing without expecting something in return? Of respecting time cycles and silences? This village, with its simple huts and ancient rituals, answers those questions with its own existence. And maybe that is what makes it so urgent, not as a past, but as a possibility for the future. It is not necessary to step foot in Topela to understand it. One only needs to listen carefully. Because this village lives in stories, in voices, in echoes that cross continents. It lives in every place where someone decides to care for another. Where respect is more valuable than profit. Where life does not need to be fast to have meaning. Topela, deep down, is not just a geography, it is a choice. The hands that build in Topela do not build for themselves. They build for those yet to come. That is why the walls are low, the doors are open, and the paths belong to everyone. When A new house is raised. What is celebrated is not just the construction. It's the collective gesture. It's the fact that, once again, no one was left without shelter. When a young person chooses to stay, the village does not celebrate them as a hero. It simply welcomes them as one welcomes oneself. Because in Topela, returning is never failure. It is maturity. It is reconciliation with what matters. And those who return with new eyes also bring new seeds. Seeds that can germinate without destroying what has already bloomed. The music that ends a festival in Topela doesn't need applause, just the respectful silence that follows. The silence that says, "We understood." It's that silence that lingers in the air when the fire goes out, when the bodies retreat, when the feet rest. A silence that ends nothing. It simply seals the moment as something eternal. Even if brief, mistakes in Topela are not ignored. They are faced. And that is rare. Because in many places to err is to be discarded. There, to err is to be reminded of your humanity. And because of that, what is built there lasts longer. Because it is not built on denial of error, but on the real possibility of healing. Children in Topela grow up with few words and many examples. They learn to trust adults because adults are trustworthy. They learn to respect the elderly because the elderly respect the young. They learn to listen because they are listened to. And so the cycle continues. Without speeches, without slogans, just practice. The beauty of Topela lies in its depth, not in its appearance. Those who pass quickly see poverty. Those who stay see power. Those who listen see truth. Those who participate see the future. It is a place that demands surrender, but gives back meaning. And meaning today is one of the rarest things to find. And now, if you've listened this far, maybe you've realized that you haven't just heard about an African village. You've heard about humanity, about what we can still be, about what we can still preserve. Topela is a portrait of a world that seems far away, but that might just be hidden inside us. So if this story touched you, don't let it end with you. Follow this channel, turn on notifications, and share this story with someone who needs to remember that there is still a place where time has soul, where life has weight, and where care is the only law that never grows old. Because sometimes, all a village like Topela needs is someone willing to listen and help others listen too.